So we're going to talk a little bit about me, just so that you know who we're talking about. We're going to talk about what is due diligence, we're going to talk why it's important, what you need to do, what can you do yourself, very important, what you need to get other people to do, how long does it take, what's it cost, and where you go from here. And then we'll deal with questions. So we've got a lot to cover, 36 slides in 30 minutes, which is a bit of a record. My background is I worked as a lawyer dealing with international real estate transactions for over 30 years. I retired a couple of years ago now and set up this business, which is something I'd wanted to do for 20 years and never had the time. So what is due diligence? It's a question I'm asked again and again and again, and many people get the impression that it's something really complicated, really difficult, really technical, and it isn't. It's really extremely simple. Is the deal right for you? Checking out the seller, checking out the property, checking the finance, checking all the way through. And of course, when we talk about due diligence, inevitably we have to talk about what happens when it goes wrong. The reality is that few property transactions go wrong in statistical terms. Many people would say that's because people selling property know the buyer's going to do the due diligence, and so it doesn't try to pull too many strokes. And if it does go wrong, it goes badly and expensively wrong. And that's why people put the time and effort into getting it right in the first place. But due diligence is essential, but it is not an excuse for doing nothing. It's not an excuse for saying, oh my God, should I not go ahead with this deal? Is it too complicated? The words buyer beware ought to put ice in your heart, because in every legal system in the world, that is the basic principle on which things work. It is your responsibility as the buyer to check out that what you're buying meets your requirements. It's not the responsibility of the seller to spoon feed you. The seller does have a few obligations, but even if he does have obligations, don't rely on him complying with them. It is expensive and time-consuming to be suing people when things go wrong. Much better to get it right and avoid all the pain and aggravation along the way. So, what do you need to check? Well, it will vary a bit from country to country and from property to property, but the bare bones of it tend to remain the same in every destination. Not only what you have to check varies, but also how you check it varies from country to country. It's important in any country in the world, but I think self-evidently it's even more important if you're buying property in a country where you don't speak the language, you don't know the law, you don't know the culture, and which is perhaps thousands of miles away at the end of a crackly telephone line. So, if it's so important, why is it that fewer than 60% of my clients ever bothered doing due diligence, and the rest came to me when it had all gone tragically wrong? Well, I think that it is getting better. I think people have learned from the crash, and the percentage is now rather higher than it used to be. But still, it is far too low. Still, there are people going ahead without checking out the properties they're buying. And I think there are 5 reasons for that. The first, which sounds silly, is that British people are a bit reserved, and we don't like making a fuss. You've got this very enthusiastic estate agent trying to sell you a property. You don't like casting doubt on his integrity by saying, well, I'm going to get my lawyer to check that in. Then we have the fact that the estate agent may be trying to persuade you not to do due diligence. It makes his life more complicated. It makes the transaction take longer. There is the danger you might find something and not go ahead and buy the property. And for those reasons, estate agents do say that it isn't necessary. Well, it is never true to say that it is not necessary to do due diligence. And they'll sometimes say, well, you do need to do due diligence, but don't worry about it, the notary takes care of all of that. And Possibly in France, that might be almost true, but in every other country in the world, that is not true either. And of course, the estate agent may say to you, well, yes, of course, it's obvious, you must do some due diligence. My brother or my best friend or my neighbour or my girlfriend is a lawyer, and she'll look after it all for you. Now, who in their right mind is going to do that? But people do it all the time. You have no idea whether that person is batting for you or for the estate agent. But I have a pretty strong guess that in most cases, they're batting for the estate agent. So get your own lawyer who you know is on your side. Then we find the person that is worried about cost. And it is more expensive to do this stuff in foreign countries than it is here. Why? Because it takes longer. On average, in my firm, it used to take about 20 to 25 hours of lawyer work to do a full due diligence package, including all the buying of the property. Whereas in the UK, it might be 4 or 5 hours. So not surprisingly, it is more expensive. So that's what it's about. All of those things need to be checked. Is the deal right for you? Is this the right property in the right place? If it isn't, it won't make you money. Are you comfortable with risk and reward? And most importantly, are you clear about how you're going to make money from this? Because this is a business, and you need to be sure, or as sure as you can be, that you're going to come out of it at a profit. It's best to think about these things before you find a property, because when you find a property, you've got everybody chasing you to sign the contract, to get this off the market, and then you're under pressure to do things quickly, and quickly is not good when you're trying to make inquiries. If you're thinking about some of these issues and the merits of the deal in advance, we do have a preliminary meeting service, which is 200 quid, where we sit down with you for an hour or so and then talk about what you're trying to achieve, how you can achieve it, finance and all those other things, and then produce a written report for you. Check out the seller. If you're buying resale property, it's not that important, because there'll be somewhere along the line somebody is checking out the seller because the law requires it, for money laundering purposes and other things. But you, frankly, are going to pay over the money and you're going to get the keys to the house, so you're not too concerned about who is selling it. But if you're buying a new property, an off-plan property, it is critical that you understand who is selling to you, because if you are dealing with a crook, you will, guaranteed, lose your money. If you're dealing with someone who is incompetent, it is highly likely you'll lose your money. And if you're dealing with someone who is inexperienced, then there is a strong risk that you will lose your money. So you need to check out the seller. And what you're doing in terms of checks is never straightforward. And when it's not straightforward, it can be time-consuming. There's no internet register of bad guys that we can just look them up on. You have to be making background inquiries. And sometimes that is relatively simple, sometimes it can be expensive. It doesn't need to be expensive. Quite a number of occasions I've been actually for someone buying a property, and I phoned up the local lawyer we deal with in, say, Marbella, and I'll say, George, I've got this client who's wanting to buy a property in this development, and George will say, are you mad? That man's a crook. Well, that has been extremely valuable, no cost due diligence, and maybe you go then and find another property. Check out the property. Is it as described? Now, this is really important in most markets, and not enough emphasis is placed upon it. Very often you will find a piece of land that you are buying that's described as 2,000 square metres with a house of 150 square metres built on it. The reason probably is that the minimum legal plot size is 2,000 square metres. But if you actually measure it, you'll find it's only 150 or 1,500 square metres, therefore it's illegal. Or you may find that the house has been extended over the years and it's now a 500 square metre house, not 150 square metres, which again probably makes it illegal. Does it have good legal title? And by good legal title, all we mean is, does the person selling it actually own it, and has he got the right to sell it? Fundamental check which your lawyer will make for you. Has it been constructed legally? Around the world, there are millions of houses that have been constructed completely illegally. And the problem is, if you buy one, you're unlikely to find someone who's going to buy it off you, or at least at a decent price. And in the worst case, you can find a bulldozer comes along and pushes it down. So you want to make sure that the property has the necessary licenses. Is it affected by debt? In almost every country, there are ways of registering debt against property. Do it here. If you buy a property that's got debt registered against it, you become not only the proud owner of the property, but the proud owner of the debt. So you need to make sure that it's clean, and again, that's something your lawyer will do for you. Is it in good condition? In this country, we're used to the idea that you buy a house and you get it surveyed. In many countries, that isn't the case. It's not the custom. But of course, it is just as expensive to replace a roof in Marbella as it is in Manchester. And so, if you're buying an older property in particular, do get it looked at. And there are always ways of doing that. And again, your lawyer can normally introduce you to an appropriate person. And very important, will you be able to use it for your desired purpose? Now, of course, if you're buying a holiday home, you want to use it as a holiday home, that's not a problem. But if you're buying a home and you want to let it out on short-term rentals, that could be illegal. It could be that there is a restriction on your ability to do so. If you're wanting to use it as a centre for your business, that could be illegal. Even if you want to have pets, in certain cases that isn't allowed. Or I know of a couple of developments where they don't allow children. That's a bit embarrassing if you buy it and you've got 3 kids. So make sure that you're clear about what you want to use the property for, and then make sure that you're going to be permitted to use it for that purpose. Will you be able to get a mortgage, and if so, on what terms? And how long is it going to take? And what will your tax liabilities be for, both when you buy the property and when you exit the deal, when you make the sale? Understanding those things at the outset can save a lot of time and grief.